Mattei, co-director for the Center for Community Engaged AI and associate professor of computer science at Tulane School of Science and Engineering. Please welcome Nicholas Mattei.
Hey everybody, all my students are gone. I don't know where they went. Oh well. So hi, I'm Nick Mattei. I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Community Engaged AI, along with, speaking of network people, Aaron Collada, who you may have heard mentioned in the previous talk, who is our current director. I don't know why we went ahead too far. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about AI and community engaged research here at Tulane, the kinds of things that we do, and try to touch on a lot of different projects that we've had across, partnerships with Tulane Innovation, with the Murphy Institute, with School of Science Engineering, with the School of Liberal Arts, and really trying to formulate more of a hub for a lot of what we do in AI here at Tulane. So I took my first AI class in 2004. And since then, it's been a bit of an interesting roller coaster ride, especially in the last 2 years. Because it's changed completely from definition, and for a person who's been working in technology and sort of the information system, smart technology space for quite some time, this is what it feels like day to day to me. It's like, well, let's go take all our AI, our Bitcoin decks and turn them into AI decks. And so I'm constantly having to renegotiate what the definition of AI is, and I've sort of just given up as a person trying to define it, and I just let people tell me what they think it is, and then we have a conversation based on that. But I'm not going to do that today because I'm up here and you're out there, and so I'm going to get to define what I want it to be. And so I like to pull up this slide. This is the book that we still use to teach Introduction to AI. This was first published, I believe, long enough ago that Aaron Collada learned from a different version of this book than I did, that I teach now in the 5th edition. But it sort of talks about what AI is. And AI goes back to the 50s, right? And the idea is that you used to have these big giant computers that you plugged things into, that maybe added numbers together reliably, and you wanted it to do things that people associated with intelligence. And so at the time, this was something like, I don't know, play checkers, translate words, play chess, which was used as an admission standard for many upscale colleges and universities in this country for quite some time because it was a measure of intelligence. And over time, this has become some dumb game that computers play that humans are not competitive at anymore. And so that's what we sort of talk about. AI is this ambitious goal of making the computer do smart stuff, and underneath of it is lots of math and programming and lots of other things that you do to realize those efforts, right? And so the sort of official definitions of this, which I didn't put on the slide, but there is a legal US definition of AI, has to do with trying to mimic these cognitive functions and the suite of technologies that support that. And so one of the reasons why people want to talk about AI, I feel like today, is that AI has really suffused almost every part of our daily lives, right? It's what we buy on the internet. Everything you see on Amazon or eBay is ordered according to some algorithmic AI style thing in the background. Everything that you bother to listen to in terms of media is being presented to you in some order that is trying to pick your tastes, is trying to respond to you as a friend, to recommend what you might click on. It might have something to do with who you date, what you watch. It has something to do with what you eat, where you stay, how you travel, the jobs you have, and the news you're presented. Every single one of these sites uses an AI-backed algorithmic interface to help you have the best experience possible in a good world. In a bad world, it's there to control your mind and, I don't know, make you like a slave to the AI. I have no idea. But the point being is this is why this is such a complex conversation, because it's a socio-technical system, right? It's the interaction of these technologies along with all of the different ways that we interact with the world. And so I've been doing this stuff for a little while. I spent a year of my life getting yelled at by one religious studies scholar and one ethicist from the University of Chicago about how ethics and technology go together. We wrote this really fun book that's all about how do you use science fiction to think about sort of moral imagination and sort of develop your explanatory depth of ethics around technology, hopefully so students can say to me better things than, well, that one makes me feel funny or technology bad, right? To have more involved conversations about this. So this is a real book, you can buy it. I don't have my copy today. But what I want to talk more about today, in my last 5 minutes and 28 seconds, is a lot of the work that we do here at Tulane to try to really focus on what we call community engaged AI. We are not the first people to do this. This has been a great partnership with the Center for Public Service, with a lot of other things. I'm taking a lot of ideas from the sort of the background on design, participatory design, and things like that. So how can we as academics step out sort of the ivory tower and solve real-world problems using AI? This is the goal for the Center for Community Engaged AI. Our other network collaborator, Aaron, there is our fearless director. And this was something that we got funding for from the Office of Research. See Chad's predecessor, who gave us some nice money in this. And it's a collaboration between sociology, economics, public health, us and computer science. We wrote this proposal in 2021. We got funded sometime in the summer of 2022. And then this happened in the fall of 2022, and literally everything we wrote changed. Because all of a sudden, my mother-in-law, who I've been married for 15 years, has never asked me what I do, is all of a sudden wanting to have very in-depth conversations with me at Thanksgiving about what AI is. And I used to work at like IBM Research. I've done this stuff for a long time. And she's like, oh, what's this AI stuff? I was like, man, something changed. And this is what happened, right? So that's enough about the context. What are we trying to do? Well, here at Tulane, we have a bunch of affiliate faculty, a lot of folks from design, from across sciences, liberal arts, and the medical school and public health that have worked with us. Doug Harris is here, who I believe is involved with y'all over at the Callan Institute, at least at some level. We've had some partnerships before on analyzing school data. We do a lot of stuff all across campus. The big thing that we have right now, and I think my folks have left, but with the Innovation Institute, we have a partnership where we have folks that are sort of staff AI engineers here at Tulane who are helping to try to get a number of projects off the ground, both related to innovation, looking at sort of the different things for intellectual property ideas, looking for new grants, stuff like that. We have partnerships along with the chemistry department and other places working on designs in those spaces. So one of the things that we're doing, especially on the community engaged front, I've got a couple minutes here, is we've been running a series of community workshops. We just had one last week for a project, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Trying to build relationships, I think, through one of the really strengths of Tulane, which is our Center for Public Service, our students that really want to get out there and make a difference in their community, and those partnerships with the nonprofits in town to help look at what are the problems that aren't being solved by just asking ChatGPT a question. When I worked for IBM, we would do this, right? But we would do this for Fortune 100 companies that could afford my salary. Now at Tulane, my salary is much lower, and so we get to go work with like community partners who are just, who really have these great creative ideas and do co-creation with them, and we bring our students into that effect, and I think it's a super, great thing. I really love doing it. And so we've hosted a bunch of these along with a bunch of partners. We have service learning projects and capstone projects with our students. We've had a number of these across the university. And then we have a lot of cross-disciplinary research efforts that we're doing with School of Public Health, innovation, and the like. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip through with my last 2 minutes a bunch of projects that were posters that were here earlier that you guys maybe saw and maybe you didn't, and hopefully draw some attention to them. I think maybe one or two are still up. So one of the things that we've built out is this. This is our, in partnership with Clay and the Innovation Institute, a number of demos that we have surfaced, both work that we've done and also work across Tulane. If you're inside the Tulane network, you can access this page. If you are outside, good luck. But it's a number of demos we've built, and I'll touch on a couple of these here in a minute, and we're continually adding to this. So one of these things that we've done is we've worked with the city government. Actually, we haven't worked with the city government. We worked with people that do oversight for the city government, trying to make a lot of very dense information that the city puts out a lot more accessible. Who's sat through an entire Public Service Commission meeting or community council meeting here in New Orleans? I know Casey's done one. Okay, a couple people. Most of us don't. And so one of the things that we've done is we actually went through with Ion Surveillance, which is a local nonprofit, and sort of automated this ingestion pipeline of all the city council meetings. And so now you have what's called a retrieval augmented generation, where basically the AI's watched all the videos, and you can ask questions like, what got said at the last city council meeting? And it's really cool. And it turns out journalists really like this. We didn't know until after we built this. And there's a whole pipeline of this, right? So we did this with Ion Surveillance. We had another project which was just Intergy, where apparently they have to watch lots of very long Public Service Commission meetings, and they don't like that either. And so they need a similar tool, right? Is what's going to watch all this stuff so we can ask questions about it. We had a team from computer science that worked on this last year. We were able to build a really nice prototype, and that got sucked in. 25 seconds. We've got our AI monitoring for criminal court, where we ingest both information from Court Watch New Orleans, which is a really great nonprofit that we've had a relationship with for several years, that goes in and actually watches what goes on inside a criminal court, creates an alternative data stream. We pull that together along with a bunch of other information to try to surface things that are happening inside of criminal court. So I've got, my time is up. I'm gonna click through 4 more slides. This was Corey, who presented a whole bunch of work in this space, which is like AI innovation stuff on predicting what's gonna happen in a case. My only student who's still here, Irfan, I see you over there, buddy, has been working really hard on this, visualizing all of these alternative data streams in ways that the community can really weigh in on. And we actually had a really great community meeting with lots of different stakeholders within New Orleans around equity and access in the criminal justice system last week. My other student, Disa, who's worked with Patrick Button, who I saw a minute ago, all on economics, which was a lot of fun. Leo, who is also not here, was working with chemistry. This is one of the cooler demos in that website if you want to go check it out. It's all about whether or not using machine learning to predict whether or not particular chemicals will solidify into crystals, which is apparently, the chemists tell me, very important for money, but I don't understand it, so that's a thing. Also, I have a whole bunch of other projects. We've worked with Kiva, which is a large nonprofit. We worked on them to try to understand what goes into their recommendation engines. And then we had 2 other much more esoteric and more near and dear to my heart AI things on what's called collective decision making. So this is a lot of very cool stuff having to do with how we aggregate data together. And those were 2 more things, both by Ben and Rishi and Harper. And that's what we got. So I'm 30 seconds over. I apologize.
Before we get to questions for Nick, just a gentle reminder to all of our Session B presenters that you should be at the Keystone sessions.
Also, if you guys are interested in more, this is if you click on this QR code, that's our mailing list on campus. We have monthly lunch and learns. That's how you can get in touch with myself or Clay for if you've got your crazy AI ideas, come talk to us. We've got intake through, I thought I saw Rob Locke here in the A.B. Freeman School about how to do consulting with that. So we're working to really build the ecosystem across Tulane here.
I'm a professor over in the School of Medicine. I write a lot of grants, write a lot of manuscripts. My question is, AI is being employed a lot now to write grants, to write manuscripts, for students to write papers.
Yep.
At times there's telltale signs, but people who are smart enough pull these things out and put it together. So how do we handle this in the future? And what's going to become of the scientists who used to, have all this information in their head or manually go through manuscripts until they pulled all this information together, but now can do it at the click of a button?
It's a really good question. I remember a job I interviewed for out of undergraduate that was going to be going around a large manufacturing company and interviewing their sort of older engineers about how they did all this great stuff to build an AI system to help people have things at the click of a button so they didn't have to go find these people. So these information access systems have been sort of the goal for a long time. The weird thing is it works now, and everybody's like, oh crap, what do we do? And I don't have a lot of good answers for that, right? And I am not a multi-trillion-dollar company, and I think they're going to continue to push these products into spaces where they're finding markets. And unfortunately, not to sound like an anti-capitalist or anything, they're finding a lot of markets in students willing to pay to get papers written, scientists willing to pay to have papers written so that they can get promotions. I mean, and people wanting to offload workloads that they have onto these products that are, quite frankly, somewhat unreliable and maybe not being deployed in the right ways. And so there's going to be a whole give and take, but the ground is really shifted, and we're not going back to a world where they don't exist.
No, absolutely not. And I think, one possibility is that as scientists, we start using our intellectual capabilities in other efforts that don't involve, putting this information together, which means we need to devise entirely new ways to educate people.
Yeah.
So the ground is shifting fast, and as academics, I'm not sure we're keeping up.
Yeah, it's very tough. And I know, I've been on several provost level committees and things like that here at Tulane, CELT, Tony and everybody at CELT's trying to help us move that direction. But honestly, even in the computer science professional societies, folks don't know what to do. The joke I kind of make, which I'm sure is a little overly mean, is at least in computer science, we've been dealing with this for 10 years, right? Because once we had open repositories of code and the ability to search those very fast, our students started copy and pasting stuff from the internet that they didn't understand. That's been 10 years. And now it's sort of come for everyone else where it's It's like, well, they still do have to write it. And now they like kind of don't have to write it anymore, right? Like, so we've kind of divorced the writing as an expression of understanding and the actual understanding from each other. And I think at an education level, it raises a lot of questions of how do we do stuff? Because we've built up a whole educational system around, well, we just give a test to 400 people at one time. And then we just look at the writing, and that's how we understand or evaluate learning. I have a whole lot of opinions about evaluating learning in this context, by the way, but that's a little bit of digression. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question.
That was like the longest answer to those questions possible. I apologize. I got a lot to say. For those of you who are around, on Friday, the Murphy Institute's having a great AI program down at Noki, which I'll be in charge, well, kind of in charge of as well. I encourage you all to register for that. It's AI Code to Consequences.
The question I had is, AI does a lot of hallucinations. So what's being done in that field of, moving out hallucinating statements in AI?
All right, so how much time do I have?
30 seconds.
Oh man, all right, so here we go. Back in the day, you had this thing called a calculator. You typed some stuff into it and a number came out. Now we have this thing that like looks at a sequence of words and then uses a probability to predict the next word. Turns out that yes, you all are that predictable, right? The problem is that when you do that, the next word with high probability might be something insane. And so we've moved from a very deterministic way of doing computation, right? A plus B equals C, to a very probabilistic way of doing computation, where the next word that comes out of that LLM's mouth is just a probability distribution based on the previous words. You know what the biggest thing that happened to ChatGPT was between 2 and 2.5? They basically took it, when you asked it a question that says, does this have a math problem in it? And if it thought, oh yeah, that looks like a math problem, they hooked it up to a calculator so that it could do the calculations. And so this is one of these things that I think is really tough, right? Because AI now means everything. And what we really mean when we talk about AI, especially these large language models, these language generation models, is, does this random word generator make stuff up? And the answer is yes. And the answer will always be yes. And so if anybody's trying to tell you that they're going to fix that problem, they are lying, and they're trying to sell you something. And it's just a really weird place. We can try to have these post checks. We can do a lot of things. There's a lot of work in that space because, quite frankly, on the business side, we want these things to not hallucinate because that means they can be wrong. We want them to be calculators, not word generators. And so, but a lot of that power comes from that uncertainty of what's going on, right? Because much like, there's Supreme Court decisions about what constitutes copyright infringement or what constitutes porn, and it's not actually like, here are the rules. You can't write rules down for these things. Just like you can't write a rule for what a hallucination is. It's words that seem plausible but that don't really go together. And we're not going to fix that. We're not going to fix that with the methodology that we have now. That's not my opinion. This is like basically why Yann LeCun left Facebook, because they got in a big fight about it. But like, it's kind of tough. But there's things to try to address that, but it's not going to get addressed easily or quickly.
All right,
I have one thing. Can I say one thing? Thank you. Thank you, Nick. That was awesome. I just want to reinforce why and what our AI fellows do, because a lot of these people that are speaking with their posters have access to resources. Our faculty have access to these resources. So can you please just share kind of what the genesis of that was and then what the two roles are?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to go back very quickly. So with the School of Science and Engineering, in partnership with the Tulane Innovation Institute, we've hired a couple of these, what we call AI Innovation Fellows. And the idea is that we have full-time folks on staff who are here to help basically get ideas off the ground or get it over that first little hump of, well, I don't have a programmer. And this was built out of the fact that through Provost Proof of Concept and other sort of intake mechanisms that Tulane Innovation has had, and then also at SSE, just my email inbox of other folks who want to collaborate on AI, is they don't necessarily need a full-scale AI solution. What they need is someone to come in and help out getting that project to MVP, getting that project over the hump to get to that grant submission. And so we've got two folks, Joe Wagner and Leo Mattei, who were around here at some point, who are both full-time staff engineers. If you're sort of more on the innovation side, your point of contact would be Clay or any of the various proof of concept fund, pitch days, things like that as a resource that you have access to. If you're in school science and engineering or sort of more on the academic side, I would be your point of contact. And we have mechanisms to basically loan you an engineer for a little while who can come work with your graduate students, work with maybe folks that are working on your various ideas, and try to get you up to speed on AI or any sort of like tech hurdles that you're experiencing sort of in short-term engagements. So that's what we're doing. It's been working pretty good.
I know, it's awesome.
Yeah, I like it a lot.